The line was already thinning when my sister said it. "Say that again," I told her, phone wedged between my shoulder and my ear while I stood at the kitchen window watching the storm turn the backyard into a lake. Denise laughed, the kind of laugh she does when she thinks I'm being dramatic, and she said something about Mom's birthday, something about a cake, and then the whole house went black and her voice cut out mid-word like someone had reached over and turned a dial to 0. Not static, not that little digital stutter you get when a call drops, just gone, like the line itself had been unplugged from the other end. I stood there in my own kitchen holding a dead phone up to my ear for a solid 5 seconds before I said her name into it like an idiot, twice, and got nothing back but the sound of my own house settling around me in the dark. The power had been flickering all evening. Half the county was under a severe thunderstorm warning, the kind where the weather app just gives up trying to be specific and starts throwing around words like life-threatening and seek shelter immediately. I'd watched the green blob on the radar swallow 3 counties on its way to mine. So the power going out wasn't the part that scared me. Phones drop calls in storms, towers get overloaded, whatever. That's not the part I can't let go of. The part I can't let go of is that her voice didn't fade. It stopped like something reached in and took it. I want to pull back for 1 second, because I know some of you are new here and some of you have been with me since the parking garage story. And either way, I want you to actually sit with me on this channel instead of just passing through. I put a lot into these, and the ones of you who subscribe are the only reason I keep doing it. So if you haven't yet, now's a good time before this gets worse. Because it does get worse. Okay, back to the kitchen. I found the flashlight app on my phone, which gave me about 4 feet of light and a battery already sitting under 20%, because I'd forgotten to charge it that afternoon. I hadn't planned on needing it. That's the thing about a storm like this. You always think you have more daylight left than you do. Earlier that day, before any of this, I'd gone out back to bring the trash cans in ahead of the wind, and there were drag marks cut into the mud along the fence line. 2 long grooves, parallel, running from the tree line at the back of the property up toward the crawl space under the deck. Not tire tracks. Not anything with wheels. I remember crouching down next to them in my work boots and thinking, dear maybe, something hurt, dragging a leg. I didn't look too close. I had trash cans to move and a game to watch before the weather rolled in. And there's a version of that afternoon where I take 5 more minutes and follow those grooves to where they stop. And I think about that version a lot now. I didn't follow them. I brought the cans in and went inside and forgot about it until right now, standing in my dark kitchen with a phone at 4%, because something about the quiet made my brain hand that memory back to me on its own. The storm was doing something to the house I didn't like. Not just rain on a roof. It had weight to it, this deep rolling pressure against the windows like the whole sky was leaning on the glass. Thunder that didn't crack so much as arrive, all at once, shaking the cabinet doors in their frames. I decided I wasn't doing anything useful standing in the kitchen in the dark, holding a phone that couldn't call anyone. So I started up the stairs toward my room, figuring I'd just wait it out. Maybe find the battery lantern in my closet if I hadn't loaned it to my neighbor 2 summers ago, and forgotten I never got it back. I was 3 steps up when I heard the back door. Not wind. I know what a door catches like in wind, this thin rattle against the frame. This was the door itself, swinging wide enough to hit the wall, then getting sucked shut hard enough to rattle the little window set into the top of it, then swinging open again. Slow, even, like a person standing there working it back and forth on purpose. That door has a deadbolt. I know it was locked, because I'm the one who locked it, right after I brought the trash cans in. Right after I looked at those drag marks in the mud and told myself they were nothing. I stood on the stairs for a second, telling myself it was the latch. Old houses settle, wood swells in the wet. Maybe the bolt didn't fully catch when I turned it. That's a nice story. I almost believed it long enough to go back down and check. The kitchen was worse in the dark than it had been 5 minutes earlier, and I don't just mean because my phone was crawling toward dead. There was water on the floor. Not a puddle from the door swinging, that would have made sense, rain blowing in every time it opened. This wasn't rain pattern water. It was tracked. Footprints, wet ones, leading from the doorway across the tile and stopping about halfway into the kitchen, like whoever made them had walked that far and then simply weren't there anymore. I crouched down with what was left of my flashlight app and looked closer, and the spacing was wrong. I don't know how else to say it. Somebody walking normal, their steps land a certain distance apart, heel and ball and stride. Your body finds a rhythm without thinking about it. These didn't have a rhythm. Some were close together like little shuffling half steps, and then there'd be a gap that didn't belong with anything human, like whatever left them had covered that distance a completely different way than the steps around it. And they were pointed the wrong direction, toward the door, away from where they stopped. Lightning went off outside, one of those long white flashes that turns your whole yard into a photograph for half a second. And in that half a second, I saw something standing at the edge of the tree line. Just standing. Not moving, not hiding, just present out there in the wall of rain, tall in a way that didn't sit right against the fence line I've looked at every day for 6 years. Then it was dark again, and my brain did the thing brains do, filled in a mailbox, a fence post, a trick of the water running down the window glass in front of my eyes. I told myself that. I told myself that walking backward out of my own kitchen, which is not something a person does if they actually believe the mailbox story. I shut the back door. I checked the bolt with my own hand this time, pushed on it, felt it hold. I didn't clean up the water. I want to be honest about that because it matters later. I left those footprints right there on my kitchen floor and went back up the stairs because some animal part of me had already decided that whatever this was, looking at it longer wasn't going to help me. Storms used to do this to me as a kid, is the thing. Not this exactly, obviously, but the fear of it, the being alone in a house with the lights out, and the thunder rolling around like something enormous circling the block. My mother used to sit outside my door when I was 7, 8 years old, and she wouldn't come in and turn the light on because we couldn't afford to keep tripping the breaker, but she'd talk through the door, low and steady. And the last thing she always said before I fell asleep was the same 4 words every single time. Storm can't come in. I hadn't thought about that in 20 years, and it just surfaced right there on the stairs, uninvited, the exact rhythm of her voice saying it. I don't know why I'm telling you that part. It feels important. I think you'll understand why in a minute. My phone buzzed once in my hand. That soft little vibration a screen makes right before it dies. 1%. And I looked down at it out of habit, the way you look at a car's gas gauge even after the light's already on. The screen went black in my palm. And the stairs went with it. I stood on the landing in a dark so complete it had a texture to it, pressing against my eyes the way water presses against your ears when you go under. I know my own house. I've walked this hallway in the dark 100 times, half asleep, hand trailing the wall, and I could still tell you the number of steps to my door without thinking. So I did that. I counted them out loud, quiet, just to hear something that was mine. 7 steps to the door. 8 if I'm favoring my bad knee, which I was, because I banged it on the counter running from the kitchen and hadn't noticed until right then. I got inside, shut the door, turned the lock, and stood with my back against it for a second like that was going to help against anything that actually wanted in. Then I did what anyone does. I told myself a story where all of this made sense. Intruder, I decided. Some lost hiker who saw my porch light through the trees before the power went, tried the back door, gave up, wandering my property confused and soaked and probably more scared of me than I was of him. That story had a shape I could survive. I built it carefully, the way you build anything you need to be true. I sat on the edge of my bed and reached for my phone out of pure reflex before I remembered it was dead in my pocket, a black rectangle of nothing. I thought about the landline downstairs, in the kitchen, past the footprints, past that door with its bolt I'd already checked twice. I didn't move toward it. I want to be honest about that too. That's when I heard the first step on the stairs. Wet. That's the only word for it. A thick, sucking sound, foot meeting wood with too much water in the equation, then lifting free. One step. A pause long enough that I started to think I'd imagined it, my ears manufacturing sound out of pure silence the way they do when you're listening too hard. Then another step. Then another. They were climbing, slow, even unbothered, like something that had all night and knew it. I counted without meaning to, same as I count my own hallway in the dark. Our stairs have 14 steps. I've lived here 6 years. I know that number the way you know your own address. The third step from the bottom creaks, always has, loud enough that I hear it from my bed most nights when Denise stops by late and tries to sneak up without waking me. It never fails. It's not a maybe creak, it's a guaranteed one. Whatever was climbing my stairs skipped it. Not stepped around it, not hesitated. Skipped it clean, the way you'd skip a step you'd walked 1,000 times if you'd ever walked it. And I remember sitting very still on the edge of my bed thinking, a stranger doesn't know which stair creaks. A stranger has never been in this house. I got my dead phone out anyway, thumb shaking over the black screen like some old muscle memory that a phone is always the answer. Held the power button until my hand cramped. Got nothing. Not even the low battery symbol. Just my own reflection ghosting back at me in the glass with the next lightning flash. I set it down on the mattress next to me because my hands needed to be free, though free for what I honestly couldn't have told you. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. They came down the hallway at the same pace, unhurried, that same wet weight to each one. And I sat there doing the math on it, 7 steps to my door, 8 favoring the knee, and counted those footsteps right alongside my own memory of the hallway like 2 people reading the same page. 1, 2, 3. They stopped exactly where my door is. Not near it, not somewhere in that direction. Directly outside it, close enough that I swear I could hear breathing under the water sound, if that's even the right word for what a thing like that would do instead of breathing. I didn't move. I don't think I blinked. The room was so dark I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face, and somewhere past that door, standing exactly where a person would stand to knock, something was waiting. It knocked. 3 soft knuckles against the wood, polite almost, the kind of knock you'd give a friend's door at a bad hour, apologetic before it even lands. Then it spoke. I need you to understand that I was ready for a lot of things in that moment. A stranger's voice, rough with rain and cold, asking to come in out of the storm. Something wrong and slow and guttural, something that didn't sound like it had a throat built for talking. I had already built both of those men in my head, standing outside my door, and I think some small, stupid part of me was almost relieved, bracing for one of them. What I got was my own voice. Not similar, not close enough to be my imagination stretching a stranger's tone into something familiar out of fear. Mine. The exact register I hear in recordings of myself. The ones that always sound wrong to your own ears until you realize that's actually what you sound like to everyone else. It said, "Let me in, please, it's freezing out here," and every syllable landed with my own inflection. My own tired half slur on the word freezing that I only do late at night when I'm exhausted. A verbal tick I didn't know anyone else could even hear, let alone reproduce. I told myself recording. Some elaborate, sick recording, a neighbor's prank gone too far, technology I don't understand doing something I don't understand. I said it out loud too, quiet, more for myself than for whatever was on the other side of that door. Just a recording. Somebody's idea of a joke. Then it said, "Storm can't come in." 4 words. My mother's 4 words in her rhythm, in the exact cadence she used sitting outside my door 20-some years ago. A phrase I hadn't said or heard or even thought about since I was 8 years old until it surfaced on my own stairs not 20 minutes earlier. Nobody records that. Nobody pranks a phrase that never left the inside of my head. I sat frozen on the edge of my bed while my own voice pleaded through the door, "Please, come on. You're scaring me. Let me in." And somewhere in there, I stopped being able to tell which one of us that sentence belonged to. It kept going, softer, more familiar, until it said something that took the floor out from under me completely. It said, "You never told her about the money. That's why you didn't pick up when she called, not the storm." I had never said that sentence to another living person. It wasn't even something I'd said to myself in words, not out loud, not in a journal, nowhere it could have been overheard or read or intercepted. It was a thought, the kind you keep so far down you almost convince yourself it isn't there, about Denise, about the loan I never paid back, about the real reason I let 3 calls from her go to voicemail last month before this storm ever started. That thought lived in one place only, behind my own eyes. And it was standing in my hallway, wearing my voice, using it to knock on my own door. The pleading stopped, not trailed off. Stopped mid-word, like someone had lifted a needle off a record, and for 3 full seconds there was nothing on the other side of that door but the storm doing its work against the windows, and I let myself think, absurdly, that it had given up, that whatever this was had knocked and spoken and failed and simply gone. Then from behind me, in my own room, in my own voice, soft as a hand on the back of your neck. "Please." I didn't turn around right away. I want you to understand that. Every instinct in my body was screaming to move, to run, to do something with my hands and my legs, and instead I sat there for one long, useless second doing nothing at all, because some part of me had already understood what turning around would mean. The door was still closed. I could feel that much without looking, the absence of any draft, any shift in the air that would mean it had opened. Whatever had been knocking, whatever had spoken through the wood in my own voice, hadn't come through that door at all. It had never needed to. I turned around slow, the way you turn toward a sound you're hoping isn't what you think it is, and my room was exactly as dark as it had been all night, black in that total, textured way, rain hammering the window in long, uneven sheets, the glass lit every few seconds by far-off lightning that never quite reached my corner of the sky. I'd been hearing that rain the whole time. I'd stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing your own heartbeat, background noise, weather doing what weather does. Except part of it hadn't been rain. There's a sound rain makes against a window, steady, made of thousands of small impacts blurring into one long hiss. And underneath that, so quiet I'd folded it into the storm without ever questioning it, there was a second sound, wetter, heavier, with a rhythm the rain didn't have. A drip, slow, deliberate, landing on my carpet instead of my window. I'd noticed a damp patch near the corner of my room hours earlier, before any of this started, and told myself the roof was leaking again. Same spot it always leaks. Made a mental note to call somebody about it once the storm passed. I hadn't questioned it because a leak is such an easy, boring thing to believe. Houses leak. Roofs age. It's the kind of small annoyance that doesn't ask you to consider anything worse standing underneath it. The dark corner of my room doesn't get streetlight even on a clear night, and with the power out it was a solid block of black, the kind your eyes never fully adjust to no matter how long you sit in it. I stared into that corner, and for a while I saw nothing at all, just shape and shadow doing what shape and shadow do when you want too badly for them to be something. Then it spoke again, and this time it didn't come from the door. "Please," it said from that corner, from inside my own room, still my voice, still that same tired slur on certain vowels that only happens when I'm exhausted past the point of caring how I sound. But there was something wrong with it now that I hadn't caught through the door. A half-second of delay between the shape of the word and the feeling that should have come with it, like someone reciting a line they'd learned perfectly without ever once meaning it. I didn't move. I don't think I could have if I tried. My hands had gone cold against the mattress, and my own breathing sounded impossibly loud to me, too loud, like it was the only human sound left in the room and everything else had learned how to fake the rest. Lightning hit somewhere close that time, close enough that the thunder came right on top of it with no gap at all. and for one full second my whole room went white. I saw it. What I saw in that white second wasn't a shape crouched in the corner so much as a suggestion of me, standing where nothing should have been able to stand, soaked through the way you get soaked walking a half-mile in weather like that, skin gone the color of dishwater, mouth already open on the next word before the lightning had even finished showing it to me. Its eyes weren't right. That's the only way I can put it. Everything else about it was close enough to pass, close enough that in a different light, a kinder light, I might have mistaken it for my own reflection standing at an angle that didn't make sense. The eyes were the part that had never learned how to be human. They didn't track me. They just existed, wide and flat, the way a puddle exists. Then the dark swallowed it again, and thunder rolled over the top of everything, and I was alone in a black room with something that wasn't. Both of us breathing, if that's even the word for what it did. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was the only thing left in me that still belonged to before all this, some scrap of a boy sitting on the other side of a door 20-some years ago, waiting for 4 words that always worked. I said them out loud, into the dark, in my own voice, before it could say them back to me first. "Storm can't come in." It didn't answer right away. For a second the drip in the corner slowed, then stopped, like something listening, like something recalculating an equation it had already solved 100 times and hadn't expected to be asked again. I said it a second time, steadier, because the first time had come out more like a question than I wanted it to. And this time it landed the way my mother used to make it land, not a hope, a fact. The wet sound in the corner thinned out into something that was only rain again, just rain against glass, ordinary and indifferent. And I sat there in the dark for a long time after that, not moving, not trusting the quiet, waiting to see if it was actually gone or just better at hiding now that it knew I was paying attention. The power came back a little after 4 in the morning. I know because the digital clock on my nightstand blinked awake and started flashing that ugly red 1200 the second the electricity found its way back into the walls, and the sudden light of it felt obscene after that many hours of dark, too bright, too normal, like the house itself was pretending nothing had happened. I checked the corner in the light. There was a damp patch on the carpet, the kind a slow roof leak leaves behind, nothing that couldn't be explained by a bad storm and old shingles. I checked the hallway. Dry. I checked downstairs, and the footprints I'd left on the kitchen tile the night before were gone, not cleaned up, just gone, the way water disappears once it's had enough time. I called Denise the next morning once the towers were back up, and she picked up mid-laugh already, finishing the sentence the storm had cut off the night before like no time had passed for her at all. I told her I loved her. I told her about the money. She was quiet for a second, and then she said okay, and we talked for an hour, and it was the easiest conversation I think we've ever had. I haven't slept with the closet door open since. I've caught myself more than once standing at the top of the stairs at night, counting steps out of habit, listening for the third one to creak under weight that isn't mine. It always does. Every time. I tell myself that's the whole point of a floorboard, it's supposed to be predictable, and most nights I believe it enough to go back to bed. If you're listening to this alone right now in your room with the lights low or off, I need you to do one thing for me before you keep scrolling to whatever's next. Don't look behind you. Not yet. Just sit with that for a second. The idea that you already want to, that some part of you is already calculating the angle, the dark corner past your lamp, the space behind your door you haven't checked since you sat down. That urge isn't nothing. It's the same urge I had standing on my own stairs counting steps that didn't belong to me. It doesn't need a storm. It never did. All it's ever needed is a quiet room and somebody sitting alone in it, comfortable enough to stop paying attention to the dark for just long enough. So when you do finally look, and you will, ask yourself honestly whether what's back there has always been sitting exactly that still. This has been Stark Diaries. If something's ever waited outside your door in a voice you knew too well, I want to hear about it in the comments, because I don't think I'm the only one this has happened to, and I don't think it's finished with either of us yet.